The following teaching is possible thanks to the friends and partners of Spirit and Truth Fellowship International.
We Christians call our holy book the Bible. But why do we do that? You know, it's worth knowing why we call this book the Bible. And to understand that, we're just going to need to learn some of the history of the verbiage of the word Bible. How did it come to be? Well, the standard writing material in the ancient world was papyrus. Now, papyrus, the papyrus plant, was a plant that grew wild in the Nile Valley, just along the Nile River. And sometime, perhaps even as early as 2000 BC, historians are not really sure, the Egyptians figured out that if they took the papyrus plant and cut it into strips, and then interwove those strips, and then pounded those strips flat, and let it dry in the sun, that you would end up with a material that you could write on. In fact, our English word paper comes directly from the Latin word papyrus, because papyrus was the Latin word for this plant. Well, obviously, it's really handy to be able to write and take notes. And so the Egyptians began to export this papyrus. And so by perhaps as early as 1000 BC, this papyrus was being exported from Egypt into Greece. Well, the traders of the ancient world were the Phoenicians. So when you wanted to move product from Egypt to Greece, it was the Phoenicians who owned the ships and did the trading. And when they took the papyrus plants and the papyrus sheets out of Egypt and then were shipping them to Greece, they would typically go through the Phoenician port of Byblos. Now, in an interesting turn of events then, what happened was the Greeks began calling these papyrus sheets that came to them Byblos, or Biblia, if you will. And they did that. Biblia, they began to call it a Byblos, a sheet of papyrus. And so that, because it all came out of the city of Byblos. And eventually, they began to refer to a document as a biblion. So the sheet of paper was a biblos, and the document, which in the ancient world was a scroll, that would be known as a biblion. Well, the plural of biblion is biblia. And so when the Hebrew Old Testament that the Jews used, when the Hebrew Old Testament was translated into Greek about 250 or so BC, in the version we today know as the Septuagint, the Greek-speaking Jews began to refer to their Bible as, and remember it's written in scrolls, a bunch of little scrolls, they began to refer to their Bible or their holy book as ta Biblia, the books. And so ta Biblia then became the books, and as the word was pulled into Latin, also still plural, the Latin holy books became known as the Biblia Sacra, the holy books. Well, eventually, the most holy book, the Bible, just became known as Biblia, which is interesting because, again, Biblia is plural, but in kind of an interesting turn of semantics, the word Biblia began to be used for the singular Bible. And so through then the history of the language, the Biblia books became Biblia, the book, in the Latin, which then came into our English is simply the word Bible. So where did it come from? It started out with a papyrus plant and a sheet of paper coming through the city of Byblos, which then gave its name to the books and documents that were printed, then became Biblia, and from there into the singular, our Bible. And that's where we get our word, the Bible.